The rebellion that backfired. When a toxic employee tried to sabotage my company. The plot thickens, discovering a treacherous plot in my startup. My name is Chris, and I'm the CEO of a tech startup. I'm in my 30s, and while being a CEO might sound glamorous, the reality isn't always what it seems. I didn't start the company myself. I took over after my father, who founded it, tragically passed away after overexerting himself. I had been working abroad for a large multinational corporation. Though I knew about my father's company, I never truly grasped the extent of his sacrifices until it was too late. He had asked me to join him, but I was deeply invested in a project at my current job and wanted to see it through. Tragically, he died just as I was finishing up. I quit my job, returned home, and took the reins of his company. I wasn't proud of the circumstances, but I was determined to honor his memory. My father always believed in me. During a rough patch in high school, when I struggled to fit in, he encouraged me to pursue what you love and compete in areas you are good at. His words inspired me to explore computers, languages, and even color design. I developed apps and learned to converse with foreign clients. My goal now was to take his company public, making it a valuable contributor to society. It was the ultimate way I could show my gratitude. Navigating rough waters. About a year into my tenure, I started noticing issues. Operational and systemic problems are one thing, but the real problems were with the people. The behavior of Kevin, the department head and manager, was a major source of concern. According to other employees, Kevin spent significant time on personal errands during work hours. I even overheard him, on multiple occasions, speaking to me condescendingly. "Chris, I'm heading to the post office," Kevin would announce. Going to the post office was rarely part of his job, so I stopped him. "Thanks for your hard work, by the way. What do you need to do at the post office?" Kevin, clearly annoyed, would respond, "There's nothing strange about going to the post office. I need to make a payment, and today is the due date." He'd then grab a large package and try to leave. Except our company used online banking for everything. Payments were handled by accounting or sales, not by Kevin. His explanations didn't add up. "We use online transfers, don't we? What's in that package? Are you delivering something to a client?" I asked. Kevin would frown, saying quickly, "The other party isn't familiar with the internet and only accepts in-person transactions. Besides, stepping out of the office now and then is good for refreshing and boosting work efficiency. As for the package, it's personal stuff." He'd then kick the door open and hurry out. Other employees had suggested that Kevin's main side hustle was reselling goods. We didn't restrict side jobs, as long as they didn't leak company information or harm the business, but this only applied outside of working hours. If Kevin was doing this during company time, it was a problem. I needed to investigate, but I hoped I was wrong. It was disappointing to suspect someone in a management position of such behavior. A cascade of disconcerting discoveries. Even as I tried to stay focused, I received more worrying reports. Snacks and coffee, purchased with employee dues, were disappearing at an alarming rate. Then, Betty from accounting approached me. "It's about Kevin," she said, looking troubled. "His expense reports are blatantly improper. He's submitting claims for private drinking parties and family meals." Betty was an exceptionally talented employee, and I deeply respected her. I knew Kevin mocked her for having been truant in high school, but I had always reprimanded him for it. As we discussed this in the break room, Mike, one of the founding members of the company, overheard us. "Betty, I think you should let Chris know about that matter as well," he said. "It's not good to carry the burden alone, and this is a problem for the organization." Betty, with tears in her eyes, then revealed that Kevin had been persistently asking her out for meals, and she had become fearful of his advances and felt uncomfortable in the workplace. Mike, usually calm, spoke firmly. "If this is true, there's no reason Betty should have to endure this. I think this is serious enough to consider disciplinary action." I agreed. We needed to form an investigation committee. I asked them to let me know if anything else came up. Suddenly, Kevin appeared in the break room. "How can you stand chatting in such a cramped space? I want to make coffee, so can you move?" He waved dismissively at me. I stepped aside, annoyed. After making his coffee, Kevin grabbed a handful of snacks and started to leave. Mike called out, "Kevin, if you take that many snacks, no one else will get any. Those are my favorites, you know." Mike said it in a joking tone, and Kevin, seemingly oblivious, smiled. "Oh, so you like these? I'll bring some for you next time. So look forward to it." He left with the snacks. Betty sighed. Kevin's so stingy. There's no way he's bringing snacks for anyone. The dynamics in the office were disheartening. I needed to create a better work environment. The next day, Kevin barged into my office. "Ever since you became CEO, my salary hasn't gone up at all. Care to explain why?" I couldn't say Kevin's performance had been impressive. He'd been implicated in misappropriating supplies, working on side gigs during office hours, and causing other employees to complain. Growing the company means improving employee satisfaction and attracting top talent, I said carefully. I'm fully committed to investing in our people, so you'll see the benefits. Please continue to work hard. I'm counting on you. I didn't want to confront him directly before I had all the facts. Kevin became agitated. "If you value talent, you should raise my salary immediately. Otherwise, skilled people like me will leave for better opportunities. It's easier than ever to switch jobs these days." It was a threat, but I responded calmly. "I understand your point. However, a company must be sustainable to thrive. Increasing labor costs with the current profits wouldn't be a wise move." Kevin slammed his hand on the desk, grinning menacingly. "Got it. That's your answer, right? Done crying later." He stormed out, slamming the door. The final showdown. That evening, I found a stack of envelopes on my desk, each labeled resignation letter. There were about 30 in total. It was unheard of. Then, Kevin slipped back into the office. Grinning smugly, he announced, "If you're the CEO, we're all quitting. This company is done for." "So that's what this is about," I said, realizing that Kevin was behind it all. "Kevin, just to clarify, you're saying you intend to resign from the company?" Kevin laughed loudly. "That's exactly what I'm saying. You won't raise my salary, so I've got no choice. It's the era where talented people leave boring companies behind." I looked him straight in the eye. "Thank you. That's a big help. I'll proceed with the necessary paperwork." Kevin's face twisted in confusion. "What's that supposed to mean? Bluff all you want, but it's useless. After all, the core members of this company, including Mike and Betty, are leaving with me." I knew it wasn't true, but I didn't deny it. Instead, I began revealing the facts. "I acknowledge your resignation, but I will be in touch with you several times regarding follow-up matters. Just so you're aware, you likely won't be receiving any severance pay. I wanted to let you know in advance since you'll need to. Plan for your future." Kevin's eyes widened. "Hey, what kind of nonsense is that? The company employed me, so you can't treat me differently from the others for resigning." Just then, Mike and Betty walked in. Betty spoke first. "That would only apply if you had been working as diligently as the others. Unfortunately, we've already gathered enough evidence of your misconduct, and you'll need to make amends for that." Kevin looked back and forth between them, his voice trembling. "What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Aren't you two leaving with me? You promised to quit this company and work as employees at the company I'm starting." Mike sighed. "We said we would follow you. Sure, we said it sounded fun, but starting the company isn't that easy. Someone who can't even earn the trust of their colleagues isn't likely to succeed. There's no way we're boarding a sinking ship we already know is doomed." Mike continued, "By the way, in the company you're planning to start, would you turn a blind eye to employees working side gigs during office hours? Because I've already informed Chris about how you've been spending work hours reselling items." Kevin panicked. "How do you know about that?" "No, you got it all wrong. I'm not doing any side gigs." "Then why do you frequently go to the post office to ship packages?" Mike pressed. "You often say you're going there to make payments, but there's no record of any transactions. I followed you to the post office once to check things out. I have connections at the post office and could have just asked, but I wanted to see for myself." Kevin stiffened. "You were sneaking around and following me. That's cowardly. Besides, it's the fault of management for paying me so little. I have a family to support. I had no choice." Betty stepped in. "So, is that why you submitted fraudulent expense claims? claiming family meals as business expenses, and submitting receipts for personal purchases? Those have all been verified. Kevin turned pale. Betty continued, her tone icy. By the way, do you recognize this old printer sitting here in the CEO's office? I bought it through a marketplace app. Kevin's eyes widened. No way. You've been stealing company equipment and selling it on the marketplace app, haven't you? The model numbers match. And some of the items still have the company's property management stickers on them. Your recent marketplace sales have been doing well, haven't they? That's because I bought a lot of them myself. Betty stepped closer. Embezzlement in the workplace. That could get you up to 10 years in prison. And as for all those times you mocked me for being a dropout, that constitutes defamation punishable by up to a year in prison, a fine of up to $33. 000 or both slander carries a penalty of up to 3 years in prison or a fine of up to $5,000. Please forgive me, Kevin pleaded desperately. Betty fixed him with a glare. And let's not forget you threatened me into going to a bar, even after I refused, didn't you? I'll never forget what happened there. Be aware that such actions fall under the crime of non-consensual indecent conduct, which carries a sentence of 6 months to 10 years in prison. Be prepared for the consequences. Kevin, defeated, collapsed to his knees. So you knew they weren't going to quit? At this rate, no one else will leave and follow me either. I share my thoughts. I'm not so arrogant as to think I'm a perfect leader, so I didn't immediately assume the resignation letters were fake, but all the envelopes had the exact same handwriting that struck me as odd. When I first saw the resignation letters, I almost blamed myself, thinking it might be an outburst of dissatisfaction toward me or the company. However, the moment I noticed that all the envelopes had the same handwriting, I began to suspect it was a scheme orchestrated by one person. Then Kevin suddenly announced that he was leaving with a group of employees, turning my suspicion into near certainty. H led us to this point. Either way, you can no longer stay with this company. Pack your belongings and leave by the end of the day. We'll contact you about what comes next. Thanks for everything up to now. Kevin silently left. The aftermath. The investigation continued, revealing more offenses, including the leak of customer data. He had sold personal information to outside vendors for significant sums. The list of his violations was extensive, and pursuing legal action would take time. His side hustle stalled since Betty stopped buying from him. She had only bought the items as part of the investigation, and Kevin would be required to repay more than he earned. He sold his newly built house and was living alone in a small apartment. Even his family had abandoned him. I didn't know how he would manage, but I could only hope he would reform. As for me, I was working with my talented team to expand the business, using my experience to build a stronger, more ethical company.